All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the Meet the Pressers Riding Shotgun with Charlie live stream. Here we are on a Friday night, May 10th. Matt, what's happening? What's new?
up,
What's
brother?
exciting? What have you been
Oh,
up to?
goodness. Let's see. I've traveled to Colorado, to Wisconsin, to Pennsylvania twice just in the past 3 weeks, and then I'm going to be in Texas with you next week.
Ooh,
Too
that's
much
a lot of
travel.
travel, dude.
It is trying to get the
I
garden
don't
in,
know.
everything else.
Right, you got all that homesteading stuff you got to do with
True.
You've
Well,
got the Mallory Unlimited. I've got the Cook Limited over here.
well, when the end of the world comes, I know where my friends are coming. Unfortunately, fortunately.
Right. I always tell my friends, I said, listen, when you become a gun guy, people are like, oh my God, if something happens, I'm coming to your house. I always pat them on the stomach and say, fatten up because
Oh,
you have nothing that you can provide for us. We're going to eat you.
Neil's in the house.
Neil is in the hizzy. Neil just made some big project for his wife that he had to cart around.
I know. He told me about it at the Girl in the Gun conference.
That's awesome.
Yeah, chicken tractor.
A chicken. I wasn't sure what it was. I don't know if it was something for him or
Ride around
something.
on or something.
Yeah, I don't know if his wife was putting him in a cage.
Oh,
I don't know.
Oh goodness.
Anyway, yeah. So you've been traveling. What did I do last month? Last month I went down to New Jersey and I interviewed. It's aggressive. Yes, it is aggressive. Last month I went down to New Jersey and I emceed an event for the Coalition of New Jersey Firearm Owners and the Women for Gun Rights. Nice. And one of the speakers was Dick Heller. We were talking about him before we hopped on live. So it was pretty cool. And then I ended up going with Gabby Franco, John Petrolino, Eric Saperstein, who's one of the guys from CNJFO. We all went with Dick Heller and we went and did some sporting clays down in South Jersey. So that was pretty cool.
Very neat.
And this is kind of fun and exciting. I'm filming a show with Mr. Heller on the way, or the gun dude, as he calls himself. Yeah. We're filming a show on the way down to South Jersey. So he does have a tendency to talk a lot. And I'm like, all right, Dick, we got 45 minutes. That's all we got. And we're probably 15 minutes away. And I noticed one of the GoPro batteries is starting to it's going to be on the fritz. There's no bars left on the battery. So I'm only doing, I don't know, 82 in a 65. And, I pulled the mic. I'm like, Dick, you got to hold on to that thought. I pull the microphone out. I pop the camera out. He's like, do you want to slow down? I slowed down to 75. There's a big curve in the road. He's like, you want me to take the wheel? I'm like, no, we'll be good. Thinking to myself, Heller, take the wheel. I'm thinking to myself, I could be the person that kills Dick Heller.
Oh,
right. And I got the battery back and everything was fine. And a good time was had by all.
That's awesome. So I mentioned before we came on that Dick's supposed to be here in Syracuse where I'm at. And I'm probably going to try to go to that event Thursday night and then go down to Texas on Friday. Yeah. So I might show up a little late on Friday just so I can meet Dick and get a picture with him.
That's very cool. Very, very cool. All right. Well, listen, so next week is going to be NRA weekend. We actually, for the people that are tuning in and watching this, there is going to be we're going to do a pop-up show someplace. Yeah. I don't know where we're going to do it, but
random.
It's going to be total rando, but it's not going to be a rando person. So we have somebody that was that is I think they call him justice involved. I think that's what the term is, right? But anyway, this guy got in a heap of trouble in New Jersey, of all places, for transporting hollow point ammunition, and he spent 4 months in jail. And he ended up moving out to Colorado, and he was involved in a self-defense situation. And he hasn't been able to talk about this for 3 years. So we're going to be interviewing Brian Aiken is the person. We're going to be interviewing him live from the NRA annual meetings next weekend at some point. So please pay attention to the socials. We'll obviously let people know, and hope you guys get tuned in for that.
Yes, it's going to be fun.
All right, let's get to it, shall we? So
bring our guest in.
Let's do it. We're going to bring him on in. Ladies and gentlemen, Steve Bozich from BareArms.com, BARE arms.com. And just for you folks that are watching, Meetthepressers.com/giveaway. The code for tonight is BARE, bear. I ended up changing that, Matt.
Oh, good job, dude.
Yeah, I know. Hard to believe that I was the one that had the spelling problem.
The faux pas. I had the faux pas.
Exactly. So, anyway, Steve, welcome to the show, man. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I can't express enough my gratitude for the opportunity.
Oh, stop. We're all special snowflakes in this beautiful world.
Right. You've been working on some stuff for a while, and you've been working on like the 3D printing and the making your own firearm stuff. So let's get into this. How did all of that get started? When did it get started?
Yeah. Well, it's a long, winding trail. A lot like our legal system, actually.
Touche.
I actually got into, well, I mean, I guess you go all the way back to the beginning. I became a gun guy sometime in February of 2002. The first time I qualified with an M16 on a range, right? And I mean, just fell in love. I'm originally from Boston, so Boston has a long, deep history when it comes to firearms. Specifically, guns are bad. All right, don't say the word gun. It's kind of like YouTube, right? You know.
Yeah.
It's verboten. So, it wasn't until I joined the military that I really kind of became hooked. And fast forward about 7 years, when I got out, I separated and I was living in where I am now here in North Carolina. And one of the first things I did was I got my concealed carry permit.
Right. And
I was absolutely flabbergasted that there were people here in North Carolina that had the benefit of the freedom and weren't exercising their right to carry, but open, concealed, whatever, but to have a permit and all the benefits that went with it. What I heard consistently was that we had this little kind of quirky rule in North Carolina. You had a concealed carry permit, and you were ever found on school property, educational property, with your pistol, then by fact of having a concealed carry permit, you were committing a felony. Whereas if you didn't have a concealed carry permit, it was labeled a misdemeanor.
Yeah.
And I thought that was kind of crazy. Fast forward a couple more years, there was actually the legislature addressed that issue, and they did so with a law that essentially made it so that if you were on educational property with your firearm, you were lawful as soon as you can't carry into school, but you can drive onto school property to get your kid. You don't have to go home and ground your carry pistol first. So when that law changed, I said, there's no reason that everybody that should have a gun shouldn't have a gun and have a concealed carry permit to go with it. So I decided to get certified to give the class. And that's when I started going down the rabbit hole that is gun laws. And I learned about building your own at home. Specifically, it was in 2015. This is probably one of the best instances of the Streisand effect I can think of. ATF issued a ruling that said that build parties were now verboten. They actually killed them a couple years later, but they had never formalized a rule. In 2015, they formalized a rule that said that because the machine shops that were being used in these build parties are engaged in the business of manufacturing. If their tools are used to manufacture firearms, then machine shops have to have an 07 FFL, and all firearms so manufactured have to be serialized. I was just flabbergasted because this is me finding out for the first time that you could build your own guns at home. And that when you built them, they didn't have to be serialized. Nobody had to know anything about them. And that was particularly intriguing to me because one of the reasons I was a big proponent of a concealed carry permit here in North Carolina, because we're known as the Brady alternative state. So when I go to an FFL to buy a gun, they don't call the FBI to get permission. I just present my concealed carry permit, just like the Trusted Traveler program with the TSA.
Right.
I started kind of going down that rabbit hole for how you could make your own at home. And
now, I've got a quick question about that. So you've got a carry permit, so the carry permit forgoes the background check, but you still have to do the 4473, right?
You do.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
All
But instead of knowing every time I'm trying to buy a firearm, the FBI only knows I'm doing a NICS check once every 5 years. So
Nice.
And the additional benefit is that, if you happen to be somebody who gets tapped for, a delay a lot, that's no longer an issue. Or, if you ever find yourself in a situation where there's huge volume and NICS is delayed for whatever reason itself, you are essentially exempt from that concern. So, there were other benefits we had, and one of them will become relevant in just a second as the story carries on. One of the other big benefits was that we had until recently universal background checks for handguns here in North Carolina. You had to go to the sheriff and pay $5, and he did his own background check, and you get essentially a blank bill of sale to do a transfer of a handgun. The concealed carry permit substituted for that as well, et cetera. So there are a number of benefits. And then, kind of circling back to the, and the main benefits, of course, were that you were kind of freeing yourself from, admittedly, restrictions that never should have existed in the first place.
Exactly.
There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, but obviously,
right
say again?
I was just saying it's right there, right? Second Amendment.
Shall not be infringed. Yeah, so absolutely. But nonetheless, the fact is they're infringing. And, if you certainly want to put yourself in the best position that you can, then here in North Carolina, of course, the concealed carry permit's a great way to do it. But yeah, so giving the concealed carry class, kind of led me into the rabbit hole of gun laws. I learned about privately made firearms or homemade firearms, and got into 80%. Specifically, actually, it was that ATF ruling with the essentially the kibosh on build parties. It the specific ruling that ATF put out was that because these machine shops are engaged in the business, and of course, the engaged in the business rule is something that's in the headlines once again recently. But what they said was that because the machine shop is engaged in the business, then any firearms manufactured on their tools need to be serialized and registered. But the important thing that I took away from that was that if you're not engaged in the business of manufacturing, then your tools can be used to finish firearms, and you don't need an FFL. And so I did a little bit of digging, and I looked up the statutory definition of engaged in the business, and it requires that you devote time, attention, and labor through the regular course of trade or business with the principal objective of livelihood and profit. And so I asked the IRS if I could start a 501c3 nonprofit for the purpose of firearm education and safety, to give build classes using the same tools and equipment you would find in a machine shop. Essentially create a maker space for guns and ammo. And I swear, my application came in on a Friday because it was approved. And we began, my lawyer, so I spent about a year just doing the paperwork and coming up with, all of these things. He says, don't make it one dimensional, have this robust, concept, have these different programs and workshops and all these things. And we came up with something that was, really impressive. And he said, now what's going to happen is it's probably going to take about a year, and then you're going to get denied, and then we're going to have to go through an appeal process. And, I was mentally and emotionally girding myself for that eventuality. And then like 6 months later, it came back approved.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's
so,
awesome.
we were totally caught off guard. So I began the process of finding a place, one that would rent out, because essentially I was going to create a makerspace for guns and ammo, with tacit permission from the federal government. And I found a place that would rent out to me. And more importantly, I finally found a place that would underwrite, insure the nonprofit. And
awesome.
Once I had those things, I got my certificate of occupancy from the town in which I was going to offer the classes. And I was ready to sign the lease. The only problem was that certificate of occupancy was dated March 16th, 2020, which in North Carolina was the day that everything shut down for COVID. Yeah, I know. And if you can't tell that I'm still bitter about that, I'm still very bitter about that.
I think many of us are.
Yeah. So the nonprofit kind of had to, take a backseat. And by the way, so the nonprofit was its own separate entity. The concept behind it is that anybody could just walk in, they could bring an 80%, they could take a class, and they'd be good to go.
Nice.
Completely unrelated to the nonprofit would be another store right next door, which would sell 80%. And that's how Bear Arms got started.
Yeah.
Well, so when COVID shut everything down, I had to radically rethink everything. Fortunately, I had a friend who was, a savant when it comes to 3D printing. He had been doing it. Now he's been doing it for over 15 years. I think he was at 12 or 13 or so when we really started doing this back in 2021. And so, brilliant. We wanted to operate under the premise that we could take just kind of a cheap, an Ender 3 or an Ender 3 clone, just a bed slinger, kind of the rudimentary kind of 3D printer out there, upgrade it, develop slicing profiles for that upgraded printer, for particular filaments, and then have consistent, reliable results on any printer so upgraded. And so that's what we did. Now, I don't know how familiar everybody in your audience is with 3D printing. What I'll say is it's a lot more complicated than 2D printing. I'll put it like that. There's a slicer program that is essentially what it'll do is it'll turn your three-dimensional model into machine language, right? Machine instructions for the printer. And there are hundreds of different variables, and it's like it's like tuning an orchestra. It's not, it's an iterative process. It's dynamic, and if you change one thing, then you think you're good, but then you change something else, and you got to go back to the first one. So
that's a term I'm not familiar with. Charlie, are you familiar with that one? Tuning an orchestra? Is that what you said, Steve?
Oh yeah, it's just analogous. For a slicer. Why am I? Is there an inside joke that I'm missing?
Maybe. You're muted, Charlie. You're muted. Or your mic's dead. I'll mouth this word.
Keller, take the wheel.
He's a music teacher.
Oh, okay.
He's got to work on his audio. He's coming back. He's in the back room.
It's very, very important. There's a very shallow learning curve when you get started, right? Because if you don't know what you're doing, it's going to take a long time to get to where you need to be. Essentially, what we've done is we've hacked it, right, so that we can provide out of the box a printer that comes preloaded with every single file you could possibly want.
That's amazing. So we got a question from Gun Websites. Q3D printed frames and stocks are now personal projects at home. How long do you think it'll be before gun shops will have custom printed services to offer truly custom guns at the local store level?
That would be fantastic. I don't know. Material matters. Oh, do we have Charlie back for good? No. Or my mic's out.
You talking? No, he's working on it.
Okay. At least it's not me. Usually it's me.
I thought he said no. Unmute, yeah. No, he popped out again. So continue.
So in terms of material will make all the difference. In terms of an actual firearm part, like a frame or receiver, you'd have to get to the point where you're doing. I don't think ATF and you should be in 07, 02 if I
am.
Okay. So you can't just serialize a plastic part, from what I understand. If I'm mistaken, then
no, you're right.
Yeah. So
I mean, you can, but it's just a plastic part with a number on it. I mean, it's not a, a gun.
Well, right, but if it's a frame or receiver,
right?
I'm pretty sure the ATF wants that in metal. Is that correct?
I don't know. I mean, Chuck Schumer says that guns are plastic, that people just print them and they shoot all plastic, even the bullets are plastic and the gunpowder's plastic, right? And it can go through metal detectors. Makes sense.
The future is plastic, right? Isn't that what they said in The Graduate?
Still can't hear you, Charlie.
But so I guess to the deeper question or a broader question, when it comes to making parts, materials will matter, files will matter, and then I guess so the files that are available to gun shops to make things, right? So I mean, off the top of my head, what would be some of the things that might become popular quickly? Maybe pistol grips. One of the great things about additive manufacturing is your ability to customize, right?
Right.
Injection molding is fantastic because you can make one piece over and over and over again cheaply. The problem is that first piece is very, very expensive. On the flip side, with additive manufacturing, with FDM, fusion deposition modeling, or 3D printing, generally speaking, you can make anything cheaply. The downside, of course, is that you're limited in scope. Obviously, there's the print area and there's the material that you have at your disposal. But
seems like Rich liked my joke about plastic gunpowder. He says it's the most dangerous.
Yes, it is. So hey, look, we are working on that. I promise.
Charlie, do we got you? Oh, no sound, Charlie. Nothing. Try rebooting. You might have to
turn it off and turn it back on.
We'll be here for you, at least for another half an hour.
Right.
So going back, just so we can kind of track with everything, you basically got into guns, and then from there you got into gun building classes, and that's when the you got into some trouble with that because you didn't know that they changed it, or you knew that they changed it and you stopped doing it because you had some. You made the reference earlier that So what's currently happening as far as what you're doing and overreach, government overreach?
We've always been careful about staying on the right side of the law. I could still do.
How's
Yes,
there we go.
You're back.
Yay, my front.
Hooray!
Too. Sorry.
That's all right. We missed you.
And by the way, I'm sorry, I can't see the questions. So if there is,
I'll read them to you.
If I didn't answer one to the satisfaction of anybody,
nope, that's fine.
Okay. No, in terms of legality, we could give build classes today. We are still fine on that. Some of the issues that really arose from the frame and receiver rule was the kits that were being sold on the, like for instance, the Polymer 80. Yeah. The big issue that I had when everything shut down was simply that, obviously inventories were depleted. And, additionally, you weren't going to get anybody coming to take a class, right? I mean, I would have been offering them because I kept on giving concealed carry classes, hand over fist, I can promise you that. But yeah, I mean, in terms of launching the nonprofit at that time, it would have been inopportune. So they had to take a backseat at the time.
So you had mentioned as far as the, going into a location, if you have the license, then it's a felony in North Carolina. But if you don't have a license, it's not. And here in New York, it's kind of the same thing. I mean, it's just a felony regardless whether you have a license or not.
Everything's a felony in New York.
Right. Yeah. So it's like Class E felony if you go into a restaurant that serves alcohol, even if you're not going to drink or you didn't know the law change, they'll charge you with a Class E felony.
Right. And I don't know if New York is a 51% state.
It is not.
Okay, so anywhere that serves alcohol,
it's a 0.0001% state. Like if they serve any alcohol or cannabis for consumption on the property, you can't be there. You can't be in there with a firearm, legal or illegal. And of course, the illegal is the bad guys.
And one of the things that I think kind of I don't want to say moderated, but you know, when I started giving concealed carry classes, one of the things, you know, that I came to the profound conclusion to was that you own yourself. You have, you know, a loyal ownership of your corporalty. You may have at best fee simple of, you know, realty and personalty, but when it comes to your actual physical self, you own you and nobody else does. And so drug laws are just as stupid as gun laws. But it absolutely amazes me that you can say in New York, which is, you know, marijuana, which is, I believe, still a Schedule I drug. Yeah, you can have a cannabis shop, but God forbid you can't have a gun on you. But that's just, I mean, that's the kind of the times that we live in right now.
For sure. We just had a growery that was it looks like we're passing those. There you go. Hey, listen, gun websites, it takes a lot to run this show. So we're doing stuff behind the scenes to keep the shit going.
People don't even know.
Get off our back now, you hear? Anyway, sorry. Had to bring a little New York out of me there. I'm over here looking at his website. I'm here adjusting mic settings. But
by the way, I just for the record, I was born in Albany, so I have
you got out of the commie state
to talk. Well, I was only there for about the first 6 months of life. I grew up in Boston, right? So
okay.
And I didn't get out of there until 2002 technically. So
another commie state.
Oh, terrible! Absolutely horrible. But you know what? Well, you know what? We're live, so I won't say it on record. But there are ways to, for instance, travel through places like New York while armed, and you know, continue to exercise your rights. You know what I do when I drive through New York?
Drive
the speed limit.
Yeah, the speed limit.
No, I'm the opposite. I have to go through Connecticut for a half a mile every week. And I always tell people when I'm carrying in Massachusetts and I'm in Connecticut for a half mile, I drive as fast as I can because I want to be there as little as possible.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and if you're not driving like an idiot in Connecticut, they're probably going to think you're like drunk or something.
They're going to pull you over.
Yeah, that's New York City.
I absolutely, the last time I drove on, I maybe it was 95. It was the most, it was the most bizarre thing I've ever seen. Everybody was in the left lane going like 10 miles under the limit. And if you wanted to like speed, you had to be in the right lane. It was unreal.
Yeah, it's crazy. Where was I? I was just somewhere and they were like that. I think it was Colorado or Wisconsin or something. There was some place I was just at recently, and it was that weird. It was like everybody's in the left lane going slow. You got to go in the right lane to pass them. It's like,
well, probably the common denominator is, you know, that weed is legal. So
yeah. That's a good point. I didn't think of it that way. So I see on your website you rep Mantis. That's good. That's awesome.
I do. Yeah. I found them with COVID again. You know, I mean, when COVID hit, you know, every 2 weeks I was filling up concealed carry class. You know, I mean, especially after Memorial Day, after the Floyd riot started. I mean, just the demand was unreal. One of the things that I just preach and preach and preach is you have to. I mean, you know, a concealed carry class is not the end all and be all. You know, I mean, it's an introduction to like basic safety. Yeah. We're going to go over the law. You're going to have an understanding of the basis of the law. And that's pretty much it. You have to go out and you have to, you know, take the initiative and keep on practicing and keep on, you know, building your toolbox. In 2020, you couldn't. All right, there's no going. If you could even get ammo, you know, you certainly weren't going to the range to shoot it. The Mantis is absolutely fantastic, and I don't want to turn into a running advertisement.
But it's okay if you do, because they're one of our sponsors.
They are.
Oh, cool.
Right there.
Yeah. No, it does such a good job of, you know, really forcing people to look at their fundamentals. And, you know, I mean, you still need to go to the range, but instead of having to go to the range and you know, fire 3 or 4 or 5 boxes, you go to the range and you just kind of confirm with one. So regardless of, you know, where you are in terms of your skill set, it's a fantastic product, and you should go buy one.
In a way, absolutely. Or enter to win one. Like read the bottom of the screen, and people can win one once a month. We give away a Mantis.
Like, that's for which X10?
The X10. Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
why wouldn't you sign up?
Right? Why not?
Where do I sign up?
People win them all the time.
This is what we want to know. So you have to go to meetthepressers.com/giveaway, enter BARE as the code, and you're going to get entered for either the SIRT, one of the SIRT pistols, or for the Mantis X10.
Yep. Both great companies, both great sponsors. Love them both. Actually saw a lot of their people. Mike Hughes out in Colorado teaching as well at the Girl in a Gun conference. So, yep, good people.
Cool.
So what was I going to say? There was something that made me just think of something. So you got a wait list I'm seeing on your website with the 3D printer.
Yeah, so we're out actually right now.
Well, that's a good thing. It's good.
We are retooling. Yeah, so we've proven that we can take pretty much anybody's printer and upgrade it. So now we had originally started with one particular brand and one particular model. Lamentably, that company has been bought and they have discontinued that. So we're probably just going to do the Ender. The Ender has been it's been a staple for years and years and years. Yeah. The reason we actually we were using the VoxLab X2. The thing that really impressed me about it at the time when we started was that it had a safety feature that would make the probability of burning the customer's house down on the ground significantly less than with the Ender, which did not have that feature. So
that's a very good, it's a very good observation. Yeah.
It's that compassionate capitalism thing, right? So, so yeah, we decided to go with that. Ender has since actually integrated a runaway temperature sensor into their product. So our excuse for not using them no longer exists. And given the fact that, of course, the model that we originally started with it has been discontinued, and the Ender again is a staple. It's been stable. It's been there for years and years, and presumably will be there for years and years more. We're going to start doing that. So
my thought on that, when you said that that they added a runaway feature so it wouldn't catch on fire and stuff, what popped in my mind was Clark Kent and then the lasers, just Superman. I don't know, for whatever reason, that's just boop, popped in my head.
No. So have you ever actually played with a 3D printer before?
I have not, and Pincus and Clint Macro, we've all been talking about it, and we've had other people on the show. Mr. Snowmakes has been on our main show, and I just haven't pulled the trigger yet. I actually have to buy a 3D printer for my NFA stuff that I'm doing to be able to engrave in that. So that's my next purchase.
As soon as we're done, kind of tweaking, because we don't have to do the proof of concept. We know the proof of concept works. We already have some of the parts that we made for the last printer that are universal and can go into anything. So as soon as we have our Ender running just right, I'll make sure you get one. I can't print anything cool with it in New York, of course, but it is what it is. Maybe you get out to the Rob and Jordan's Makers Match next year, and you print something out in Pennsylvania, or wherever they happen to hold it. But yeah, no, they're fantastic. We will get one out to you. But the issue with it's not a Clark Kent. It's a hot end, right? It actually has to. You start with a spool of filament. It's just in fact, back in the day, if you're familiar with like a weed whacker spool, right? Yeah. They actually use that to print on early 3D printers.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Technology.
So you're starting with that, and then you have this hot end that heats it up. And essentially, if you've ever done welding or anything like that, it creates a little bit of a puddle, and it feeds that out. Yeah, and keeping your puddle just right is important. So keeping your temperature just right is important.
Did you hear that, Charlie? You got to keep your puddle just right.
I have to keep my puddle just right.
So Pete, yes, Pete. I mean, engraving laser. Yes, that is what I meant. Sorry if I didn't say that correctly. I'm still trying to learn the terms.
Come on, man.
But a 3D printer that Steve is kicking out is making me very excited. So this is good.
Be careful of your own puddle.
My own puddle. I just made a puddle.
Joe Biden made a puddle.
Oh, no, I think that was a poop. Anyway.
Why not both?
Come on, man.
He might have done both.
All right, we're getting off.
We're digressing. We're digressing bad. We think we're in one of those states that have marijuana.
Regressing, I think, is the appropriate term, but yeah. Either works. Oh yeah, no. When the hot end, when it heats up, the nozzle heats up. If something goes wrong, if the printer, I mean, these are, for lack of a better term, cheap Chinese.
Yeah.
Printers, there's always something that can go wrong. Then you want it to be able to catch that and stop it. And I say cheap Chinese. Yeah, it's true. The alternative is, and one of the problems that we solve isn't just a technical one; it's an economic one.
Right.
And I think it's worth mentioning that. I mean, we're taking these $250 printers. We're putting $200 worth of stuff into them.
Mm-hmm.
Plus labor, and we're selling them for $500, and we're selling them, loaded with files, so that you can print all of this great stuff that I can't show you right now.
Well, you can show us, you just can't touch it.
Well,
that's why that stuff's on the wall. It's hanging on the wall. I could be like,
put it on a fishing wire and hold it up.
I actually
that's true. You wouldn't be touching it like a marionette, right?
That's
well,
right.
I had a gun show this week, and of course I've got the zip ties. So if I held it up by the zip tie, would that, or would that be a?
I mean, you're not. Are you? Would they call that indirectly touching it? No?
I would not be coming into contact.
What do you think, Charlie?
All right, here's what I think. We did this with somebody else. She was about to grab her gun. I'm like, oh, uno momento, por favor. So what we ended up doing is we pulled her out of the studio. She put the gun up behind her, and then we brought her back into the studio. So I don't know if there's a way that you could finagle your camera.
Possibly, but probably not significantly low enough. You know what? I'll just put some pictures on the website.
Or you could just get out of frame and just drop it into the frame without having a hand touch it. And it's a floating gun.
It's a floating gun.
Right?
Sure. Let's try it. Okay. We'll be back.
Wait. Go. No, you go ahead and do it, Steve. I got something. I got a epiphany.
Steve will be back. He's got his marionette. Oh, he's back too soon. He's going to bring us his marionette gun.
All right, do it. Turn it on, Charlie. Turn it on, Charlie. It's a ghost gun. Ooh. That was funnier in my head, I guess. That's pretty cool. Nice. Steve has been replaced by a 3D printed item.
Steve is back. His ghost gun is gone.
Steve,
that is a Mac 11. I absolutely love it. It's a Mac 10. Of course, the magazine well is separated from the pistol grip. That's the Mac Daddy version of it. But I mean, it is a workhorse.
You printed that thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and I mean, we've actually taken those frames and nailed, literally put nails into 2x4s with it.
Oh, that's cool.
That's
the downside, we are printing in PLA Plus. That is our primary filament right now. It is a very good filament. It's not excellent. Excellent will be PACF. We do have designs to essentially recreate what we're doing right now with nylon with carbon fiber filling. Yeah, and that will have all of the characteristics of factory, right? So we will be able to do that.
So the same printer will print that other medium, or medium, or wow, that's awesome.
That's cool.
It's we will probably not be doing it with the Enders. We might be able to get away with it. We started after we did PLA and we kind of hit it out of the park with that. Obviously, we got greedy. We said, okay, can we do it with PACF? The problem is, nylon in general is a lot trickier than just PLA plus. It requires dehydration. It requires certain environmental controls, and in terms of the temperature and all the other things we had to do, we couldn't get consistent results at the time. And so, we kind of put that on the back burner for the time being. Once we start making our own printers from scratch, our goal is to be able to design them to be able to do not just PACF nylon, but also to do a support filament, hopefully in something that is water soluble, that will make post-production work a breeze. So yeah,
I like how you said that. Was it PACF? Is that what you said, the term? So you said PACF and nylon right afterwards. I do the same thing in my classes. I'll go Kydex plastic, because students are like, well, it's Kydex,
Right.
It's a specific polymer.
Yeah.
Speaking of Kydex and kind of going back to the original question about gun shops and products and stuff like that, one of the things I've done is I've 3D scanned a gun, and I have digitally added blocking to that gun in CAD. I've printed it, and I've formed Kydex around it to make a functional holster.
Oh, wow. That's pretty cool, man.
Which means that now we can have a library of files with every combination permutation of weapon-mounted lights and firearm imaginable, and the cost in terms of dollars is now essentially nothing. The only real cost will be time, and the time that it takes you to make it.
Damn.
So,
that's cool.
What additive manufacturing and FDM specifically is going to open the door to is going to be revolutionary.
Yeah, that's cool. That's
cool.
Really cool.
So this past weekend, you were at an event, and you were you're at an event. Now, were you wearing this shirt? Or the shirt that you have is your? I thought at first it said, "Now I have a machine gun," but it does not say that.
It does not. These are actually our Christmas shirts, all right, or our Christmas sweaters, all right. It says, "Now I have a 3D printer."
3D printer.
Ho ho ho.
Nice.
No, I was not wearing this. It was a little hot to wear a sweater in North Carolina this last Friday. I was actually wearing a tank top because bare arms.
Look at that. That's pretty
slick.
I
did see that on your website. Let's see, products.
Now, are you the one that has is the beararm.com tattoo really yours, or is it someone else's?
That was this arm, but it was just like, if you've ever gotten a tattoo, they put down like the outline, the purple outline.
Oh yeah, stencil.
Yeah. So it wasn't. I mean, it was real, but it wasn't real.
It was a real stencil.
Temporary.
It washed off, right? So right, and as aforementioned, the whole kind of punchline to what we're doing is we're taking these 3D printers and we're upgrading them, right? We're tuning them so that they can consistently produce the same thing over and over again.
That's awesome.
But to prove that, I had to take a bunch of different printers, upgrade them the same way, and then take one file, put it on all of them, and then print a spool of of that file over and over and over again. Consequently, I ended up with like 3 dozen Glock frames that, frankly, I don't need. Now, as I mentioned earlier, in North Carolina, until recently, we had universal background checks for handguns. All right, so if you wanted to buy a handgun, be it through an FFL or through a private sale, you had to present either a pistol purchase permit or a concealed carry permit. Well, our legislature in the last year has done away with that relic of Jim Crow, and consequently, handguns can now be transferred through private sales, just like long guns. That is to say, as long as the recipient, that both members are residents of the same state, at least 18 years of age, not a prohibited person, it's lawful to do a private transfer. So
Nice.
I had all of these Glocks that I didn't need, and so I decided to do the world's first free gun zone. And so I walked around and gave away free guns.
That's
That
pretty
is
cool.
too cool. Now, you sent me a video, and one of the videos had it was you, right?
That was me.
It was you. You were out there, and you're like, I've got some questions I need to ask you. Are you over 18? Are you a U.S. citizen? Have you ever renounced your citizenship? Or all the questions that we see on a 4473.
Yep.
And just to really be thorough and dot my I's and cross my T's, I made sure that they weren't Bidens either, because we know that some of those folks aren't necessarily forthcoming when it comes to filling out those 4473s.
Yeah,
Right.
Sorry.
And
Just give
safety
it related
is always,
to the president.
safety is always our premier concern.
Of course. I make a joke in the class. I'll be like, yeah, when you're filling out the 4473 and it gets to the question about marijuana, it is still illegal federally. So if you lie on that form, we know you're the only person that's going to get away with that is Hunter Biden.
Right.
Nice. Very cool. So how many of these Glock frames did you give, or Glock style frames did you give away?
Yeah, it was right, Glock style frames. I don't have a hard count. We probably gave away somewhere around a dozen.
Nice.
Cool.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. I thought I would get through the whole box. Unfortunately, I didn't. I don't know. Now, as aforementioned, I was wearing a tank top. I also had a kilt on. And since I was screaming free guns, I figured I might as well just round out the look with some face paint. So I did the blue face paint and stood around with a kilt and screamed free guns.
That's amazing. That's funny.
Yeah.
That's funny. So
if you're going to do
trying
something, just
do it.
Go way farther.
All the way out. Yeah, just over the top.
Absolutely.
So when you say that, it makes me think like you were trying to scare away the people that like didn't like guns and thought like I'd be like, who's this guy? Hey man, nice kilt, right? I mean, like those are the type of people you want to come up. The ones that are like, oh my god, a gun, and they run away. Job well done. Go bye. Get away.
And we got, we got a little bit of everything down there.
Nice.
So I mean, that was the main motivation was to just get rid of these things that have been sitting around, collecting dust for the last year and a half or so.
William Wallace of 2024.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, my feelings wouldn't be hurt if this became a thing, and if people who had bought our printers just decided that, hey, I'm going to take a spool and
just
give away a bunch
of
yeah, Johnny Freedom Seed, but
so many different things.
Now, there were some ulterior motives. I don't know if you remember a story out of North Carolina about a year and a half ago. In December of 2022, there was a power outage that lasted for almost a week after an attack in some transformers.
Wow.
Doesn't ring a bell. It made national news.
Vaguely.
Yeah. It did make national news. Somebody shot out some of the power stations here in Moore County, North Carolina.
Wow.
And so it was tied to allegedly an all ages drag show that was supposed to be held at the theater in downtown Southern Pines here in Moore County. And it happened to be the same theater where this whole event takes place every month during the spring and summer months, the first Friday. That I don't want to say crashed, that I attended. And I knew that I would be welcome because they don't mind guys wearing makeup and a skirt. So I just wanted to, give them another chance to relive that fateful night. So we went out to have fun. Is what we wanted to do.
Well, and I think a lot of people on the side that don't like guns, they like. I was in a conversation yesterday with somebody who's like, "Why does anybody need full auto?" I'm like, because they want it. Well, why does anybody need it? And it just came to me. It was like it came quick, and I'm thinking, why does anybody need a garden? I mean, there's a grocery store. Just go buy your food at the grocery store. Why do you need a garden? You're a crazy prepper. No, I have a garden, a big garden. I have chickens and bees. So I was being facetious, but in the sense of like, you want the government to tell you can't have it. That's like, well, you can't have dogs or cats. I don't like dogs or cats. Nobody needs dogs. Why does somebody need to tell you what you don't need? Mind your own freaking business. That's how it should be. I don't want to hurt
somebody. Yeah, as soon as somebody says, why do you need? I mean, the conversation's over.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, you won, right? If that's what they're defaulting to, then I mean, there's really no other conversation to be had. But yeah, I mean, I think another part of it was education. I mean, a lot of people don't know anything about privately made firearms. They don't know about the capabilities of a lot of the technology that's emerging today, and a lot of people don't know that I will take a joke way too far. And now they've been educated on all those things.
Yeah.
Yeah, CNT says, why does the government need full auto?
Exactly.
Yeah, right. I mean, why do they need nuclear weapons?
Only to kill the citizens.
I've
Duh.
never blown up a city. Right. Like,
that's a good point. Yeah, I've never dropped a bomb on another country. Two, right after each one after another.
Yeah, no, and I mean, why do I need full auto? In the event the enemy masses together.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why. Or I need suppressive fire.
Yep, many reasons.
Right.
Oh, the comments are blowing up here. Nice.
The comments are blowing up. We got DJ and CNT going on here.
Why can the government who works for us, who are elected by us, be able to tell us what we can and can't have? Exactly.
They can't. It's all that matters is whether or not you follow them. I mean, they can tell you whatever they want, but it takes two to tango.
It does take two to tango.
And one person to obey.
Right.
Absolutely.
Brandon Herrera finally released a video of his homemade firearm today, an AK-50. A little beyond 3D printing, though. Holy moly.
Wow.
And actually, fun fact, Brandon Herrera is one of the board, he's on the board of directors of the nonprofit. And I actually, one of the first prototypes of the AK-50 was, I saw right here many moons ago. So, yeah, today is the day he released the video of the AK-50. So, nice. And of course, if you don't know, he has moved from Fayetteville. He's down in San Antonio. He is running for Congress. He has forced an incumbent into a runoff. Yeah. I believe that runoff is May 28th. I could be mistaken on the date, but it's coming up at the end of this month. So if you're in the area, please make sure you get out to vote. Bring your friends out to vote. I can't stress enough how important it is. And if you're not in the area and you got a couple of bucks left over, send them down his way because I'm sure you could use them.
Absolutely.
All right, CNT says, but when you don't obey and take your tax dollars, then they lock you up. Case in point, Dexter Taylor in New York. Yep. Dexter Taylor, he's not the guy that
built his own, I think, and the judge, I don't know the guy's name, but I mean, it would be the most relevant and recent that comes to mind. The judge said something along the lines of, the Second Amendment.
The Second Amendment's not up and not here. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so, and that's a good point, right? Don't pay your taxes and you go to jail. Absolutely. If you're not going to obey, then don't get caught, right? I mean, or do what your rank can handle or what your lawyer can afford. Like I said, when I drive through New York, I go the speed limit and I use my turn signal.
Yeah, make sure your car's inspected.
Don't disobey everything at the same time. Pick and choose, right? You got to be strategic here.
I always tell people if they're driving through New York City, Jersey, or Washington, D.C. with a firearm and they're transporting it unloaded, locked in a secure container, before they get off the Merritt Parkway in Connecticut, there's a gas station. Pull over, go to the bathroom, get something to eat. There's a Subway, there's a Dunkin' Donuts, a convenience store. And when you're in those three places, let people merge in front of you, obey the speed limit, and don't flip people off.
Right.
Wow. Yeah, so I just Dana Loesch actually interviewed Dexter Taylor back in February. Yeah, they charged him. Yeah, he was the one here in New York. Yeah, he got possession of, built his own. Yeah, but he also had unfinished frames and receivers, unlawful possession of pistol ammunition, 18 years in Rikers. Jeez.
Yeah. Did you have a copy of the Constitution too?
Yeah, right. Yeah, stuff that's legal. You can build your own gun federally, but you can't do it in New York, just like you can't federally have marijuana, but you can in New York. I mean, how is that?
Right.
Backwards.
Oh, I mean, it's clown world, and we know. And again, I mean, don't get caught. I don't know how we got. I can't speak to that. I don't know the specifics, well enough. You had mentioned the Brian Aiken case. I actually, when you were describing it, I was like, wow, that sounds just like Brian Aiken, because I've been telling his story for years, as a concealed carry instructor. Yeah, him and Shanine Allen. there's really two morals to both of their stories. One, of course, you've got to make sure that you know what the laws are, right, in the jurisdiction in which you're going in. And then, of course, two, the other moral to that story is you never go to New Jersey.
Right. Who's just
valid point?
I don't go to New Jersey. There are 49 states.
Stay out of New York and New Jersey.
Yeah, well, New York you can't do. I mean, if you're trying to get to New Hampshire, you fly, get a boat, or drive through New York. Those are your options.
Right. It's hard to. I mean, when you look at the map and and I'm teaching courses, people say, well, what do I do if I want to go down to South Carolina or North Carolina or whatever, Virginia or something? I'm like, unloaded and locked in a secure container. Don't stop. And it's stupid to say that. There's a difference between driving through upstate New York and there's a difference between driving through upstate New York, turning at Buffalo, going north up to Niagara Falls, and then turning back down and driving, getting back on the New York Thruway. I get there's absolutely no difference in this. You just went a longer route, but it's completely stupid.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll tell my students, if you're driving through a state that you don't have a license in, follow 926A. Make sure that you have the gun unloaded, locked up in the back of the vehicle, furthest part from the driver. Make sure you follow all traffic laws. Don't stop for anything, to go to the bathroom, to eat, to get gas, to sleep. Just go through that state as legally and as fast without speeding as possible, and don't stop for nothing.
And when you say 926, I assume you're talking about the safe passage provision of FOPA?
Yeah, interstate transportation requirement, so 922A.
Or 920. Okay, so New York, and I'm sure New Jersey as well, both, completely ignore that. They'll arrest you anyways, and then they'll let you use it as a defense 6 months later when you get to go to court.
Yeah, and that's another aspect you tell people, like, just because the law says you may doesn't mean you must. And if you do something, they could try to hold you up in court. I mean, they're using your tax dollars to try you. So you got to use your money to work.
And you can be charged with anything. Just look at OJ.
Yeah. Who?
So ignorance of the law is no excuse for enforcing it. Unfortunately, explaining that to a cop on the side of the road isn't going to do you any favors.
You are not going to win the urinating contest on the side.
No,
absolutely
not.
Well, it's been awesome, Steve. So
I'm looking at the time. I see we're getting any other questions.
I don't know. Well, if somebody writes questions, we'll read them. If you are watching the show, please go to meetthepressers.com/giveaway. Enter the code BARE for bear. And that is how you get entered to win to possibly win a SIRT pistol or a Mantis X10. Let's see. We got a quick comment real quick here from DJ. Nebraska state constitution begins with a version of the Second Amendment that includes more specific individual rights in addition. That is very cool. We need to get out of here because, well, first of all, where can people find you and everything that you're up to, Steve?
The easy answer is beararms.com. I've got to update the website, I know, but all my contact info is there. So if you're looking to get a hold of me, that's the place to do it.
Cool. And then
BARE, the adjective, not the verb. I'm sorry, say again.
No, just because we had one more question from David. Will you carry upgrade kits for existing Ender 3Ss?
That is something that we want to work on. Yeah, it's going to be dependent upon essentially the how hard it is. If you have to start doing soldering and stuff like that, it might be an issue. So we're working on it.
Super.
Very cool. Yeah, please check them out. Thank you guys for tuning in. Please check our show out next week. Sometime during the NRA annual meetings, we're going to be doing a live show with in person, a remote, with Brian Aiken somewhere in Dallas, Texas. And if I am correct, Steve, you're going to be on a show with Frank Johnson right now, aren't you?
I just got the update. So yes, I am doing a doubleheader.
All right, I got it too. So I will see you there.
Cool.
All right.
Stay
all right,
safe.
guys. Thank you all for tuning in. Please like and subscribe and all that sort of cool stuff. And we'll see you guys next weekend from the NRA annual meetings in Dallas, Texas. Thanks for tuning in. Take care.